Daddy. What are you doing?
I'm just doing a podcast.
What's that?
Regular dads sharing our experiences in the chaotic world of dad life. Welcome to Dads on Duty.
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dads on Duty podcast. My name's Brian, and today I am super excited to introduce to you our guest, Coach Josh Wood. Coach Josh is a Tasmanian-based TEDx speaker, educator, and fitness expert offering a new perspective on health and physical fitness, training to become strong for life. Previously a competitive powerlifter, combat sport athlete, wilderness and hiking guide, and currently a dad, Josh understands that for each person, every minute of life is priceless, and top-tier coaching will help them thrive. I really enjoyed this chat with Josh and his perspective on a number of popular parenting topics. If you'd like to learn more about Josh, feel free to check out the link to Josh's TEDx talk, as well as his social media profiles in the show notes. But without further ado, let's get into it with Coach Josh Wood. Josh Wood, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
That's all good. Super excited to chat to you today. All things dad, business, work, parenting, you name it. I'm sure we'll get into it. But I actually wanted to give you a bit of credit just off the top in a big roundabout way. So I got a little story to tell here, and then we'll get there.
All right.
But I got a 2 or nearly a 3-year-old toddler, and as I'm sure you can imagine, the sicknesses they come home with. Thursday from daycare, she came home, and we were like, what do we got here? A little bit sniffly. Didn't think too much of it, but hoping for the best. And then on Friday, she's drinking out of my water bottle. And I'm like, is this going to come back to bite me here?
No.
Got through the weekend, and then yesterday, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I've been pretty unwell. But I was on your social media earlier today, and I was like, once again, feeling sorry for myself. And I was like, just looking through, and it just motivated me to do something. So you'll be pleased to know I went out and did a bit of exercise, and I'm feeling a lot better now. So I'll give you a bit of credit and thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad it helped.
So the tradition of the show is we like to start with a joke of the week, and there's a chance we're going to, potentially get into some vulnerable shares or, get a bit honest with, some of the realities of parenting. So there's nothing more brutal than me potentially telling a joke and nobody laughing. So in the scheme of things. So, yeah. First dad joke is about walking through mountainous terrain. So if you don't like it, you can just go and take a hike, mate. So why do hipsters prefer to hike the backcountry rivers?
I don't know.
They're less mainstream.
That's pretty good. I worked as a wilderness guide for a few years, so that would have been a good one.
There you go.
That's pretty good.
So thank you. I'll take that. If I can get a smile, that's a win. Can you, to start us off, just give us a bit of a brief background into who you are, what you do?
So Coach Josh Wood, live down here in Hobart, Tasmania. Obviously, from my accent, it's not my native island. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States. I've been out here in Australia since 2008, so quite a while. My whole adult life I've been out here. I've been in Tasmania for 6 of those years. I was on the mainland, mostly in Melbourne for the rest of that time. Yeah, I run a business called Strong for Life Online Coaching, and I work with busy parents and professionals to help them become strong for life. People who are real time poor, people who don't have all the executive function and time management to figure out everything they need to know about health and fitness, but they know they need to do something, so they call me. And I have a guarantee on what I do. I guarantee we're going to see results, and getting people, whether it's just losing a bit of weight or focusing on strength. I work with a lot of people in what we call tactical athletes. So people who work in like fire, paramedics, prison guards, got a few mountain climbers. So a bit of that, but mostly just busy people who don't have a lot of time and want to train from home and get in shape so they can be strong for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
And I do have a day job. I teach the personal training courses down here in Hobart as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think what you're saying then, like busy, like parents are busy. Like there's nobody more busy than parents. But we all know you need to be looking after your health, if at the least for your kids.
Yeah,
but it's hard.
I mean, that's the whole premise of the TEDx talk I gave earlier this year. I don't know if you've seen that, but the whole premise is like our kids learn from us, not from what we say, but what we do. And being an example is our most important job. Like it's super hard to convince people to look after themselves until it's almost too late. But parents, people who have a lot of responsibility and people learning from them, like that shouldn't be a choice. You need to get on that. You need to be the example.
Yeah. And I've heard recently, like, parenting is leadership. Like, you're
Yeah.
leading your kids.
It's a good
And
way
if
of
you
putting
can't be leading by example, then how are you leading? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. And it doesn't matter what you think, you will be reflected in your kids. Like, we've all done it. Like, we've all had that moment. If your kids talk, that is. If your kids talk, you all have that moment where you're like, oh, maybe I say that too much. Or maybe I do this too much. Oh, I don't realize I said that.
Yeah. It's so funny when they come out with different lines and you're like, where have you heard that? Oh, yeah, that was probably
Yeah,
me.
that was me.
Well, that probably takes us nicely in. Before we get too deep, can you give us a bit of a background into your family situation? How many kids, ages,
Yep.
that kind of thing?
Yep, so I've got 2 boys. My oldest is October, November, about almost 4.5. And my youngest is turning 1 in about a week and a half. So young kids, very, very, very active. Like even the baby. So Theodore and Thomas. Theodore's the older one. Thomas is the baby who's just, he's like an all-terrain baby. Like he does what he wants. He knows what he wants. He gets mad when he doesn't get what he wants, and he just crawls and climbs and jumps over everything. It's like he has such tunnel vision. And so, and I run my own business, and I do some teaching as well. My wife, she has a small business of her own running a bush play and nature education business. So both my boys have been living outside since the beginning. And they spend a lot of time in the bush with my wife's bush play groups. And yeah, we live here in Hobart and enjoy getting out as much as we can into the sun, into the bush. And today the kids, while I was teaching, spent the morning out on the beach before heading into pre-kinder bush. And yeah, it's pretty good.
That was one of the questions I kind of had, knowing that you're down in Tassie and it's, you know, known for its nature and its hiking and its outdoor lifestyle, whether you had any kind of philosophies around raising the kids, you know, in nature or being active, or whether you're trying to promote that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's you can't tell kids what to do. You just take them to do stuff. So they've been out in the bush, and I've worked in outdoor industries with wilderness guiding, and being out in nature is a big part of what we've always wanted for our kids. Lots of nature exposure, because most kids don't spend time outside. And I grew up in a very cold place, and so when people hear like, "Oh, it's 10 degrees," I'm like, "What are you talking about? The sun's shining. It's fine." Like, it gets pretty windy and it gets real wet, and that's pretty miserable. But like they say, there's no such thing as bad weather. It's just wrong clothes. So we got lots of rain suits for the kids, and they like being out in the wet and the cold more than we do. So it's a big part of what we want for them, is being out and about and being active. Like my older boy, Theodore, like he's always been in and around gyms that I've worked at, or in the garage gym, and you can see the rings. If this is a video, I got gymnastics rings behind me here, and he's always been hanging off those and climbing on those, and he's just into his second term at jiu-jitsu. Like I do jiu-jitsu. If you had a look at my Instagram lately, I'm dealing with recovery from a pec tear. So I tore my pec off at jiu-jitsu, and it's just been surgically reattached. So I'm in a sling for a long time, but I just talked about what I do at jiu-jitsu, and he got really interested, and so we just enrolled him in classes as soon as he was able, and he loves it. It's all he knows. He knows to move, and he gets all the space that we can give him to move, and as much outdoor time as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've noticed, like, I've got a bit of a home gym as well, and you got to walk through the gym to get to where the dog food is. And like, you'll walk through, and like my daughter Marnie, she'll like want to hang on the rings or the barbell and just hang there for a bit. And it's just reinforcing some of those little movement patterns, or just seeing what I do and wanting to be involved.
Yeah, kids love that. How
do you guys balance trying to be, I guess for you, a good dad with all the other moving pieces, like businesses? Your wife runs a business. Like, we kind of hear talking about trying to do well, but life's busy.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. All you can do is try. I mean, it's just keep them involved with the stuff you do as much as possible. Like obviously I'm off at work, working normal sort of hours, 9 to 5 ish with my work, and my wife's work is stuff that the kids get to go along with for the most part, and that's it's not sporadic, but it's not like a normal work schedule. So they've been involved with that since the beginning. They're kind of Theodore was the impetus for her taking the time to set up that business, and it's just kind of like, I need to do stuff outside, I need to have community, and I need to make sure my kids have friends, and she just built this business around that whole thing, building this awesome community with all these kids that are growing up now, and their parents, and the parents are on to second and third kids, and they're coming to the postpartum groups when they're born, and then coming to the play groups as they get a little older. And it's it's just a matter of dragging them along to stuff as much as possible, not being like, this isn't kid friendly. It's like, well, what else are they gonna do?
It's so interesting, that kind of kid friendly theme, because it's like, well, kid friendly is just what your expectations are and what you're willing to deal with. So it's like, you go to a restaurant and it's like, well, perhaps it's not kid friendly, but that's just because you're worried about what other people are thinking potentially.
Yeah, it is. And it's also like, we just don't do that. Like if we're going to go out to eat, like we'll rarely do that with two young kids. But if we do, we're going to go somewhere that's got like outdoor space.
Yeah.
Where the kids can run around while we're waiting for food, or plenty of space, or somewhere that's not quiet. It's like, okay, I can't go out for fancy meals with the family. I don't really care. Like that's whatever. There's better things to do, and also don't need to spend that money, So it's like, helps on that front as well. But just, you just bring them to stuff, and you readjust your life, and then you start hanging out with other parents who have kids, and everyone gets it.
Yep, absolutely. On the theme of food, and I know you're, very much into health, fitness, nutrition, educating people on that front. I'm interested in your take on, I guess, nutrition for everybody, but more importantly, kids, and how to navigate kids. Let's just call it picky eating, or kids that maybe don't want to eat.
Yeah, man, that's a challenge right now, particularly with my older boy. It's a real challenge. Both kids are very opinionated about what they want to eat and when they want to eat it. And I think a big thing was always exposing them to lots of different things, lots of different flavors. Like we do a lot of like curries and Asian food, and my wife ate those foods when she was pregnant, and that's shown to have some difference in affecting taste preferences in children. But our basic system is, it's like if we know they like something and they're like, I don't want to eat it, I want to eat chocolate bars, it's like, okay, no, just no. We usually have like alternate foods, like safe foods, where it's like, okay, if you don't want to eat this, you can have some yogurt and fruit. It's fine. We know you're gonna like that. It's fine. It's nutritious, not a problem. But if it's something that they actually like, and especially with my older boy, we're getting more into the phase where it's like, if I don't want to eat this, it's not that I don't like it, I don't want to, because I would rather eat garbage, or this argument around like, but I want dessert, and it's like, we don't have dessert every day. No, you don't get dessert at breakfast. You can't have dessert as a snack. Like, that's not what dessert is. But if we know they like it, and know that it's just like, I want to eat this other thing, or I'm not hungry because I want to eat dessert. It's like, no, you're hungry, but it's okay for them to be hungry. So I tell them, it's like, yeah, if you don't want to eat this, that's fine. It's okay to be hungry. If you're not ready to eat, if you don't want to eat, if you've eaten too recent, like I had an afternoon snack too recently, you're not hungry, that's fine. But this is the food. Like, this is what you have tonight. There's no alternative. You can have your safe food. You can have some yogurt and fruit, cup of milk, something like that. But this is what's on the menu. We phrase it in terms of like, this is the menu for the night. And if you like it, and I know you like it, but you just don't want it, that's fine. You don't have to eat. I'm not going to make you eat. You can't make kids eat. I'm not going to sit there for an hour and be like, you have to eat your food. It's like, no, you can be hungry. Being hungry is not a bad thing. People are so scared of being hungry. It's like, and if you're hungry, you'll eat it. Yeah.
It's such a new, way of thinking. I remember when I was a kid, you eat what's on your plate, and that's that. And even now, we'll go to, the in-laws, or we'll go to, the grandparents' house, and it's like, come on, man, eat your food. Come on, eat your dinner. Come on. It's like this constant pressure and talking, and it's like, it's okay. Like, if she wants to eat, she'll eat. If she doesn't want to eat, she won't eat. Either way is fine. There's not going to be an argument. We're just going to go with it. And if she ends up being hungry, well, eventually she'll eat.
That's right. That's right. And there's nothing wrong with hunger. The one thing that seems to be a massive fear in our culture is hunger. Everyone's afraid of being hungry, but nobody is lacking for stored fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, legit.
Yeah, it's a massive problem in Western cultures. It's like everyone's like, oh my God, I'm starving. It's like, no, you've eaten 4 times today. You're not starving. You have enough stored fuel for months. It's like you're not starving. And I think something in childhood kind of gets reinforced where it's like you have to eat or you're gonna starve or you're gonna be malnourished. It's like, nah, they'll eat more tomorrow. That's always the thing. Like when he goes through phases where he's like, I don't want to eat anything, then he goes through phases where he wants to eat everything.
Yeah, on
Just
that
always
point,
comes around.
I'm noticing that now because it's like you go through phases and you're like, she's not eating much. Like, should we be doing things differently as parents? And then like all of a sudden something will click and then it's just like she's asking for seconds and thirds. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, okay, no, this is just the cycle.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. And it's just a natural thing. And kids are little. They don't actually like necessarily need that much, but if they're going through growth spurt, man, do they need the food. And they tell you.
Yeah. One of the things I saw a lot on social media was like around protein.
Mm-hmm.
And like you see it for like adults and just being in the fitness phase is like, you know, you're not going to grow muscle if you're not eating enough protein. And a lot of people potentially don't get enough protein. So then I was like, oh, okay, I just need to make sure that she's getting enough protein. And just that was like in the forefront of my mind. And then I actually looked up how much protein like little kids need. And it's like 13 grams or like, you know, a gram per kilo-ish. And I'm like, is that like optimal or is that like a bit under? But I was like, regardless, that's 2 eggs.
Yeah, that's right. It's not tons. I think that's definitely on the low side. But even if we go by like, you know, higher towards optimal, and we're going like 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight kind of thing, and you have a 15 kilo kid or a 20 kilo kid, you know, that's like half a piece of chicken. You know, that's like 5 chicken nuggets. Like, it's not a lot. They need a lot of fuel. One thing we do see with the protein stuff is if people from cultures that don't get a lot of protein, so we see this a lot of Asian immigrants. Well, parents come over to Australia or the US or Canada, and then all of a sudden their kids get this new high protein diet, tons of nutrients. It's super easy to get more protein. And you see these little like 5-foot tall parents, and then you got the 6-foot tall kid. And that's mostly because of the increase in protein intake, because you need it for developing the skeleton and the muscles. So there is some, you look at that historically with Australians. So first generation convicts came over and they were like average of like 5'5", 6, and then all first generation Australian children were on average like 2 inches taller than their parents. And so we saw this, you know, more access to quality food, more access to sunlight, as opposed to, you know, England in the 1800s, 1700s, that kind of thing. So protein is really important for physical development, but it's probably less than people think. But it's definitely something that gets underconsumed when kids have a choice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because the alternate options are a lot more delicious.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think, you mentioned about pregnancy, like, and the link, and I haven't looked at the research on this, and I'm wondering maybe if you have, like, if what the mum's consuming in pregnancy is, let's say, nutritious or a certain type of food, is the kid predisposed to, or the child predisposed to having that kind of food?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is something I've thought about from a logical perspective. From how do Indian kids like Indian food? How do Chinese kids like Chinese food? But my kid only wants sausages. It's like, well, what do you have? What are you exposed to? But there is some evidence that shows that a more diverse range of foods while the mother is pregnant predisposes the kid to be more interested in a diverse range of foods. From a nutrition standpoint, I don't know heaps about this, but you do see this issue with gestational diabetes, which, you know, when someone has gestational diabetes, they put them on a diet that helps with diabetes across the board. So they help, you know, regulate blood sugar and, you know, make sure you get enough protein, all these things. But women who have gestational diabetes tend to have kids that are of a bigger body weight, like they're born much bigger, which can cause some complications in pregnancy. But they tend to have more issues around eating and overconsumption, it seems, in the long run as well. So there's definitely like an in utero effect, but I don't know tons of details about that. But definitely on the flavor thing, on the taste profile, you know, a mother that eats more diverse foods tends to have a child that likes to eat more diverse foods.
Yep. Do you do anything like once again, on the busy side of things, it can be easy to like get to a meal, let's say a lunch or a dinner, and you're like, all right, what are we going to do? Okay, I don't have time or the effort, or like we're stressed to put together like a nutritious meal. Like, do you have any ways that you try and ensure that both for you guys as a family, but also for the kids? Or is it as simple as just being better with your decision making and not giving in to the urges or the easy option?
Oh man, it's tricky. You know, like planning is probably the most important thing you can do. Like knowing what you're going to eat when you go grocery shopping, like having at least dinners sorted, and then having easy options always available. So my wife's very good at making sure there is some sort of dinner available across the week. And when we go grocery shopping, or when we order groceries these days, we get them delivered because it's way easier than taking the kids to the grocery store. Having a plan or what you're going to be cooking, and then shopping for that plan, but then also having your staples. But some nights we just get to dinner and it's like something caught up with us. We didn't have a chance to cook anything. I don't get home until between 5 and 6, and it's already dinner time then. And so then we just have easy stuff, and it's usually just Brinner, eggs toast.
Yes,
we keep cans of Spam in the cupboard, and it's like, okay, Spam and eggs tonight. Like my son loves it. It's a fun little treat. I got into Spam when I was younger on a trip to Hawaii, and they use Spam in like Japanese fusion food. I'm like, this is great. We always keep a couple cans of that, or like corned beef in the cupboard, and I have chickens, so there's usually eggs, and it's like, okay, we're having Brinner, bacon, Spam, eggs, toast, whatever. It's easy. It's not the world's greatest meal, but you're getting some protein. The kids are fed. It's fine.
Yeah, and they'll eat it.
That's right. Or sometimes it's like, okay, we're going Brinner, but Theo wants yogurt and granola. Okay, or I'll have yogurt and granola, whatever. Like, not stressing about it, because there's always yogurt. There's always some granola or something around, some fruit. Just keep it easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of mentioned this like on the philosophies with the outdoor lifestyle. Is there any other kind of philosophies, styles, or like rules, things that you're trying to implement when you're raising your kids, I guess, in order to maybe raise good kids or whatever you deem to be successful?
Boundaries are super important. I'm very, both of us are very good with boundaries. Like if we say something, we're not going to budge on this, because it teaches them to continue to push until they get what they want. So especially with like the food stuff, no, you can't eat chocolate for dinner, but I really want it. It doesn't matter. The answer is just no. So having a sense of boundaries, having a sense of self and what's important to you, but also being able to be flexible. Like, is this an important thing for me to worry about? Is this going to really cause issue? So, being comfortable with boundaries, being aware of where you need to set boundaries, but just giving them space too, to be themselves and have a lot of free play and explore and be weirdos. Like, it's this kind of this thing. It's like you need the boundaries to create the sandbox, but they can do whatever they want in the sandbox.
Yes, I like that analogy. And it's interesting, like you mentioned about being weirdos. Like, that's one of the benefits of being a dad, isn't it? Like, you just get to like express yourself again. You don't have to be conforming within what's normal or expected of you.
You gotta be a kid again.
Yeah. On the theme of like good kids, like what would be a marker of success for you if you were looking back when they're older? Like, what would have to happen for you to be like, yeah, like we did it. Like, we raised good kids.
God, man, that's looking a long way in the future. That's a long time. I'm just trying to get to the weekend.
It's like that, isn't it? You're just surviving sometimes.
Oh man, you really are. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, just someone who is comfortable in themselves and confident and able to set their own boundaries for life and not be afraid of pursuing the things they want. Not being like, should I, shouldn't I? It's like, if you want something, go for it. Go for it. The world's your oyster. Like that comfort and confidence in themselves that they can handle difficult situations and overcoming those difficult situations. I think just a really powerful sense of self would be amazing, but we'll see.
Well, the word that comes to mind when you say that is like resilience.
Yeah.
And that's like what we all, well, I guess it's a bit of a buzzword, like you want to raise resilient kids, but the harder thing is how do you do that?
you got to let them take risks.
Yeah.
They have to be able to take risks, and they have to learn how to manage risks. And that's something my wife talks a lot about with the work she does is, risky play, letting kids undertake risks, letting the possibility of failure into their lives so they know that they can handle it. We know they can handle it. Okay, good. He scraped his knee. Lesson learned. That's the first thing I always ask Theo when he bangs himself up or bonks into something. I'll be like, well, did you learn a lesson? Like, what was the outcome here? Like, yeah, you did something goofy and you scraped your leg. Are you okay? Yeah. Did you learn something? Yeah. Okay. We win. And being able to do that as an adult is a hard thing because there's this massive fear of failure, and people don't undertake risk because they've been either raised to avoid risk and take always the safe route, or because they've had failures that have scarred them and prevented them from being able to overcome them. But the more chances you have to risk failure and to overcome that as a kid, the more you're able to judge appropriate risks and overcome them as adults.
Well, you see it so often in society. Like, how many people learn new skills or are willing to do new things when they're, in their 20s or 30s or 40s? Like, most people just live so far in their comfort zone. And I think it all just comes back to school and how we were raised and the fear of being wrong or the fear of failing. Whereas you look at, like, business and, like, trying to do anything, it's like, if you're not winning, that's fine. You're learning and you're getting better and you're improving. And I think if you can try and instill that in your kids, like, that's a great thing to leave them with. What you mentioned about that, what was the question you said? Did you, like, when he bangs himself up?
Oh, did you learn something?
Yeah, like, that's a really, like, it's simple, but I feel like it gives you a tool to ask in that situation instead of just trying to tell something.
Yeah.
And that's what I often find is, like, in a situation, this is potentially a lesson-making situation, but being able to articulate and say the right things in the moment can be tricky.
Yeah.
So being able to ask that question, I feel, is maybe a good starting point to just throw it back to them and not have someone in their face going, this is what you should have learned. It's like allowing them to work it out.
Yeah, especially if it's, a minor incident, a scrape, a bang, a bit of blood and grazing isn't a big deal. That's just how you learn stuff.
Yeah. Instead of, like, don't run on the concrete. Oh, you fell over and scraped your knee. I told you not to run on the concrete.
Yes. That doesn't really teach anything.
No.
Doesn't let them learn. And I think the best way of teaching is asking questions. And I'm not always the best at this preemptively. My wife has this like magnet cheat sheet thing about, like, things you can say instead of be careful. Like, do you feel safe? How do you feel right now? Do you see, what's your plan? That kind of stuff. And I'm always like, still like, be careful, because the first thing that comes to mind, and, I work mostly with adults, but, working with kids, that kind of reframing. But after the fact, I'm always like, well, what'd you learn? Like, what's the point in doing these things and getting beat up if you didn't learn something from it? So it's always, are you all right? Okay, brush it off. What'd you learn?
Yeah, I love that. I also like, with the be careful, one of the things that I like tell myself is, like, if I say that or if I see someone, it's like, be specific. So it's like, not just be careful, but, like, explain what the potential risk is.
Yeah.
So then if it occurs, then maybe later down the line, it's like, once again, that kind of discussion around, I mentioned that maybe, be careful because if you do this, this could go wrong. And then maybe it just sticks in the brain a bit more. Like, be careful just, like, washes over, like, whatever. Like, I'm careful.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And something that popped into my head, what's the guy? Jocko Willink?
I'm not familiar, no.
Jocko, he's like one of those big ex-military, like, motivators. And he has this, I don't know, dialogue. He has this speech where he runs through, like, all these things that can go wrong, all these things that have gone wrong, and all he says is, like, good. Failure, good. That means I get to overcome something. Shit hits the fan, good. That gives me an opportunity. And, it's hyper macho and kind of, like, over the top sometimes, but I still, like, always say that to myself and to clients. Is that hard? good.
I love it. It reminds me, I've said that. So I'm a physio, and I've had clients I'll say that to them, and they'll be like, "You guys, you're the worst human beings. You're not narcissists, you're psychopaths, and all this." And it's like, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah. Just want the best for you.
That's it. And it reminds me of a quote where it's like, and you've remembered the person who said yours. I really should remember who said this, and I don't. But it was like, don't wish for life to be easier. Wish for you to be better.
Yeah.
You know, don't wish that you don't have problems. Just wish that you're strong enough to be able to deal with the problems.
That's right. That's right. A life without challenges, a life without problems is boring.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned before on boundaries and like how it's really important. I think one of the things that I'm trying to tell myself is that I need to ask myself whether it's a no or whether I'm just saying no just because, you know, I don't have the energy to deal with what the yes might be. So say you get a question asked and then you're like, no. And then they like get upset and you're like, oh, actually, I probably could have said yes. And then they've had the no yes, which then reinforces that your boundary is not important. So being able to take the time and actually think about it.
That's tricky. And often like reactively I'm like, no. And then I'm like, yeah, no, that's probably fine. And then we've kind of figured it out, me and Theo now, because I'll just be like, sorry, I changed my mind. I changed my mind. You know, that was a mistake. I didn't mean to say that. I changed my mind. And so sometimes he'll be doing something or wanting to do something, I'll be like, nah. And then I'll be like, actually, yeah, go ahead. And he's like, did you change your mind? I'm like, yeah, I changed my mind. I can do that. You know, I can make mistakes.
So fun to see in the moment, just a little person's brain ticking over and being able to put that all together.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
What do you think about so what I've been thinking about recently is backyard play setups. And I'm just thinking about equipment and like, should we be having slides or like climbing equipment or like what's optimal? Or I'm like, should we just go to the park and have an adventure and just leave the backyard like really basic and simple? Like, do you have any thoughts around that?
Doesn't matter much. Like kids will create their own adventures everywhere. Like we live on a very steep slope, and so our yard is much of a yard, but we got big eucalypts and we back onto the bush, and it's incredibly dangerous, and there's sticks and things you can fall off of and jack jumpers, and it's a bit rugged, but you know, like I've hung like a ropes, like a battle rope from one of the trees that you can climb up and swing on, and like you don't need anything fancy. Like it's fun, it's good to have stuff. If anything, I think climbing stuff is the best. Like slides are fun, but once a child masters a slide, they're just going to be climbing on it. And you see it all the time at playgrounds and parks. You know, it's like once they've figured out slides and that's not exciting anymore, they just climb on them. And that's a little bit of part of risky play and seeking new challenges. So like slides are neat, but if you got more open things, lots of climbing, swinging, things they can move, like pick up and move around. Like we got lots of sticks and logs and stuff in the back. Those get moved and carried and ropes tied around them and drug and ridden on like horses. You know, just things that are more open-ended, but from like a physical like capacity standpoint, balance and climbing. Things that you can balance on and you can climb on.
Sounds like as well like things that can be used to be creative and imaginative instead of just having like one purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with, you know, our toy selection. We got a lot of open-ended building stuff. You know, we got Duplo and magnet blocks and train tracks that you can build your little things with, and having things that are more open-ended that kids can create their own stories around, I think is really beneficial because it works not just the physical aspect and the dexterity, but the mental component too. They need problem solving, they need storytelling. Those, I think, what is the equipment company here? It's called like Monkey Gym or something like that, and they got these really great outdoor setups that are like jungle gyms. They're like monkey bars with all these extra attachments. You know, I think a sister-in-law and her kids have one in their backyard, and it's like monkey bars, but then you got like this cargo net that goes over the top so they can like hang off that or climb into it, and it's got like a little flying fox attachment to it, and like there's all these things that can just kind of be used open-endedly and climbed and crawled over and under, and that kind of thing is pretty great. Yeah,
there's some really cool like calisthenic-y, ninja warrior-y
that
type
kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I feel like I'd enjoy that as well.
That's the secret. It's for the kids.
Yeah. But anything that you're doing together is once again going to have a benefit because they see you doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can just go to the playground and save the backyard space.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But then if all of a sudden you're doing chin-ups in front of like the other parents, then you have to deal with your internal perception of whether you're showing off or whether you're getting judged. And then that's something that you need
You're asserting dominance. It needs to be done. There has to be an alpha at the playground.
That's true. That's true. It has to be someone. Why not you?
That's exactly right.
I read something with you about the playground test, and I'm not sure whether this is related to parenting or not, but I'm just curious. What is the playground test?
Yeah, actually, that's funny. I forgot I did that. I need to bring that back, but I'm sort of only got one functional arm, so it's tricky. Yeah, the playground test is an interesting idea I had playing with my kids, and it comes down to you as a parent should not have the excuse of sitting out at a playground because you can't do something. You should be in there with them. If you can't do the monkey bars, fix that. If you can't climb up the ladder to the slide, fix that. Like, you should be able to use all the equipment, assuming it's size appropriate. Some of that stuff's a little small. But you should be able to use all the equipment that they can. Those big, like, spider web style climbing things, you should be able to climb up that. That's the playground test. Can you actually play with your kids, or do you have to sit on the side and be like, nah, I'm old, or, I can't do that? No excuse. Like, get out there and play with your kids.
I love it. And once again, it's just a little bit more of a push to say, hey, like, play with your kids. Like, don't be, like I mentioned before, the person who's like worried or unable. Just do it and have fun and enjoy the moment, because at some point you'll be like, I wish I played more.
Yeah, and also, like, you're teaching them how to do things. You're teaching them what they can do. Ideally, you can do cooler things than they can do, and then they want to do cool stuff, and you can push them, and then they can push you, and then you're also showing other parents that the playground's not just for sitting around watching kids have fun.
One of the things I always thought about was like the concept of a cool dad, because I'm like, is there such a thing? Like, I don't know. Like, I'd love to be a cool dad, but I'll probably be the weird dad where your daughter's like, Dad, just leave me alone. Just stop. You're being embarrassing.
I don't think you have a choice in that one. If you're raising girls, I think, like, I've got friends with teenage girls, and I don't think you can do right by them.
But the closest thing, based on what we've just said, to being a cool dad is being able to do cool stuff at the playground.
That's right. Like, yeah, absolutely. And being able to do, like, functional things. Being able to do things to help them, to fix problems, and show them how to be capable. Being able to just be able at the playground is such a good start. Like, monkey bars are hard. If you're an adult, like, swinging from hand to hand is hard. All the more reason to do it.
Yep. Don't be afraid of hard things.
That's right.
Last couple of questions for you, and I've really enjoyed this chat and what you've had to say. What are you really loving about being a dad at the moment? Like, what's really lighting you up about parenthood?
My kids are cool. They're fun. They're probably the happiest part of my life is just seeing them, like, when they, like, really get into their play. And again, my 4.5-year-old Theo, he is so imaginative, and it's just so interesting to sit there and just, like, watch him, like, just get really immersed in stuff and, like, create these whole worlds and stories, and watch Thomas, the almost 1-year-old, like, just bulldoze his way across a room because he saw something in the corner that he really wanted to put in his mouth. Like, just this, like, tenacity, like, don't you dare stop me. There's a thing, I want to know what it tastes like, and I will crawl over every coffee table, ladder, chair, whatever I can to get there and put it in my mouth. And it's just the funniest thing, like, this, like, sense of self, like this confidence in these little people that they are figuring out the world and becoming little personalities. Like, it's just the coolest thing.
Well said. I love it. The determination of someone.
It's wild. Like, this little baby is unstoppable. He's just like, I will do that. I don't care what's in the way. I don't really understand consequences, so I'm going to go head first into everything. And he's walking a little bit now, too, and, like, just exploring movements and the environment around him, just, like, at 1,000%.
What does being a good dad mean to you?
Doing right by your kids. Like, it's not trying to be, like, what you think a good dad or a cool dad is. It's child-centered, I guess. It's like, what do I have to do to give them the best possible outcomes? And I don't mean like I didn't have anything growing up, so they need to go to a private school and I need to work all the time to make all the money so that they can have all these things. But I mean like giving them the space and safety and confidence to figure out who they want to be, and just like helping them do that without trying to make them into little yous, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on that, like, it's so easy to get caught up in giving them or trying to just, do what is better based on society's expectations or what society says should be done. And just being able to bring it back to the kids and what's best for them. I've not heard anybody really talk about it in that context before.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that our job? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in creating the world's perfect accountant. Like, I'm not interested in like, because we're getting into, Theo's going to start kinder next year, and we're very much interested in homeschooling, but he's really like, he likes the social aspect. He likes all the kids, and he's got so many friends, and he likes a lot of the things with the pre-kinder that we've been checking out. But I'm just not really interested in this, like, we need to teach them to sit for 8 hours a day, and they need to learn how to wear uniforms so they can learn how to put on a polo shirt when they get a job. And it's like, that's not life skills. That's not useful. Like, you can figure that stuff out. I went to school in the U.S. Like, we don't have uniforms, and I somehow figured out how to put on a polo shirt when I got my first job. Like, I'm not interested in turning them into office workers. If they want to do that and pursue that, that's great. But the goal is to give them opportunities to figure out who they want to be and what they want to do, and they can do whatever they want, man. I personally hope they become tradies, because I mean that is a very secure, lucrative career no matter which way you take it. And it's not something like, when I grew up, that wasn't really something that people ever talked about. But here in Australia, it's such a great option. Like, schooling's not for everybody. Imagine being able to go, okay, I've got my basics down, now I can go learn a real hard skill. I think that would be a great option, but also I don't care. Be a doctor, be an accountant, be a plumber, create something, be an artist, whatever, but I want you to do it on your own terms.
I love it. Josh, thanks so much for your time. I felt motivated by you coming into this chat, and I feel even more motivated now to get out and play and be and help my kids be the best they can be. So yeah, I really appreciate your time and what you've had to say.
Thank you.